I'm Shaana Easter, and thank you so much for staying tuned to watch us after Ray Benish. That was a wonderful performance. We're so happy to have him here in the studio. But right now I've been joined by Charles Madden and Alicia Clark, and they're going to talk to us a little bit about the Hope Commission. Mr. Madden, you are the executive director of the program.
Yes, I am.
And Ms. Clark, you are the consultant for community outreach. Why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about the Hope Commission?
Well, Shauna, thanks for having us this afternoon, or this evening. The Hope Commission is established by Mayor Baker, and it's gone through two different iterations. One was to create a study or come up with recommendations about how the city could address the underlying causes of violence. The second iteration was to come up with ways to implement those recommendations that were in the original Hope Commission report.
How long has the Hope Commission been in effect?
We have been operational since March of 2006.
And since that time, what are some of the recommendations that you've come up with?
Well, the first recommendation that we implemented was Hope Zones, and our first Hope Zone is Southbridge.
Right. Okay. Yes. And Alicia, can you tell us a little about your involvement?
Sure. And again, thank you for having us, and thank you to Michael for inviting us on. My support is to really assist the Hope Commission with connecting with community and making sure that the neighborhood planning councils, community groups and organizations, civic associations, etc., are one, informed about the work of the Hope Commission and understand sort of their very important and critical role in moving the mission of the organization forward. The primary purpose of the Hope Commission is to really sort of connect all of the entities to try and address the issue around crime and violence. So not just working with, the business community or our city government, but also looking at how community members can play a real active role in changing the environment of some of our communities as well.
Now, how can our viewers get involved? Like you say Southbridge to me, and I know what that is. How would I be able to get involved with that?
Well, Charles can talk a little bit about what happened in Southbridge.
Essentially, our first targeted area for the city was Southbridge. And in Southbridge, we work with a number of different partners to build capacity with agencies within Southbridge. So our primary partner there is the Neighborhood House, but we also work with the Civic Association. We work with Councilperson Anifa Shabazz on different programs within Southbridge. So those programs range from youth programming, employment programs for youth. We do training programs for adults in partnership with a couple of training partners. We also work with the faith-based community to provide services to their membership and just provide services in total to the entire community. Ways to get involved is obviously to be engaged in what's going on in your community, specifically with the civic associations and those entities that operate within those communities.
When you first started the Hope Commission, and you started taking a look at the areas and the neighborhoods, personally, was there anything that you found in those results that were startling to you or unexpected?
It's a great question, and in fact today we wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about reentry. And one of the more startling numbers that I've come across in doing this work is there are 14,000 African American males in the city of Wilmington, and at any given time 60% of those young men are engaged in the criminal justice system. So at any given time there's
60%?
about 60%. So there's about 1,200 men incarcerated, with another 7,200 or so men who are in the criminal justice system or on probation or parole. So when you have a little over 60% of your men who can't participate in mainstream society, that brings about larger issues for the community in total. So we at the Hope Commission, in terms of one of the recommendations that were in the original report, was to identify ways to better support that population of individuals. And ultimately what we like to see is a one-stop reentry hub for gentlemen once they come out of prison. You may be familiar that about a month ago, Governor Markell issued a mandate to his 5 cabinet secretaries around formulating a plan to address this particular issue, not just in the city of Wilmington, but statewide. And so we hope to be very influential in how that plan is rolled out. And ultimately, as I said earlier, our goal is to create a one-stop reentry hub. But it's important to know that all of these initiatives require the active engagement of community. And we've been asked by that group to assist with some public hearings that are going to be coming up. Specifically, the public hearing for the city of Wilmington, which will be held March 10th at the Chase Riverfront Center. And that will be held at 6:30 to 8 o'clock.
Yes.
We do have a flyer here, and we want to make sure that we post this flyer throughout the community, because it's important that people understand that once people are incarcerated, 98% of those individuals come back into the community. So the community must be involved in how we find solutions to better support our young men who are coming out of prison.
On a regular basis here, I would say every other month we have a guest who comes on and talks to us a little bit about their efforts in the prison reentry program. And I can't remember his name, but I'm hoping that Michael's watching and he's going to run in and tell me so that I can find out if you guys are in any way working with him.
Well, one of the things that should certainly happen, the meeting that's scheduled to take place on the 10th at the Chase Center from 6:30 to 8 o'clock, all of those organizations and individuals, community groups who've been involved with this issue, who've been helping individuals who are transitioning out of prison back into communities, need to attend the public hearing meeting. It's extremely important that the cabinet members that Markel has appointed hear from those individuals. So families, agencies, volunteers, everyone really needs to be there. And so my task over the next week is really going to be sort of beating the bushes and pounding the pavement and trying to get the message out that the public hearings are scheduled throughout the state, but on the 10th here in Wilmington, and it's important for everyone to come out.
I will definitely get the name of the person I'm thinking of, because I'm sure that he would definitely want to be there.
Absolutely.
He's given us also some statistics that you've mentioned as far as the population, and it's staggering. We have like 2 minutes left, but I do have one more question.
Sure.
You mentioned the employment for young people element of Hope Commission. What are those little voices saying to you?
Well, one of the things that we did when we initially joined, identified Southbridge as our Hope Zone, is we identified adjudicated youth in that area. So those are the individuals who are at risk of, continuing behavior will wind up in our adult system. And what we found is an opportunity to engage those individuals through work, because a lot of times what we find, particularly in Southbridge, there's not a lot of outlets for kids. And so what we did is, our first summer there is we had a summer youth program where we had about 15 kids or so who were part of that program, giving them opportunities to work in the community. And then, some meaningful work also working at Henrietta Johnson, which is one of our partners in Southbridge, Norman Oliver's place in Southbridge, Neighborhood House. But throughout the community, we had individuals working. We've been able to maintain about 10 of that 15, that original 15 group of individuals, of youth, to be involved in our employment program. And what that does is gives an opportunity to have a captive audience after school and during the summer months to, again, encourage kids to make responsible choices. And then, obviously, give them an opportunity to earn a little income so that they are able to support themselves.
Right. That's amazing.
And one of the important things that Charles didn't mention is the fact that there's a family crisis therapist who's also working very closely with families to help them sort of learn how to deal with those issues that their children are facing.
Yeah. We have less than a minute left, so I want to give you the opportunity once again to tell us when and where the meeting will be.
Sure, absolutely. Tuesday, March the 10th, at the Chase Riverfront Center from 6:30 to 8, there will be a public hearing focused on offender reentry. Anyone who has touched this issue, who's passionate about this issue, should come and let their voices be heard.
Okay. Mr. Madden, Ms. Clark, thank you very much for joining us. We really, really would like to have you come back on in the future and just keep us updated on this, because it's very important, and I'm glad that Mayor Baker saw fit to have this commission formed.
Thank you, Shaana. Thanks for having us.
No problem. Anytime. Michael has your, anytime you want to come back, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Please continue to watch, because we have some more exciting guests for you on In the Upper Room Outreach Ministries, The Monitor.